You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, Voss Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your family. As always, you can further show your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss, one on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. We have an amazing young man on the show with us today. He's got his newest book out called The Jersey Death Squad, A Journey to Kill Jessie Freeman. Came out May 1st, 2024. Mark Benning is going to be joining us on the show here in a second. We're going to be talking to him about his insights, his new book, and why you're going to want to pick it up from wherever fine books are sold. Mark is a New Jersey native living in North Jersey, currently with his lovely wife and sweet dog Lola. He's a very creative person. He's a musician, moss artist, publishing author, the director of a technology company. His approach to life is to find a creative angle, no matter what he's involved with. He does not believe that we ever have a perfect life. There is more to learn, more to do, and ways to do life better. He doesn't believe that he will ever reach the finish line in life, and he feels that we can do better every day. We certainly can. That's why we have people like him on the show. Besides doing technology, he's also the drummer for a band named Southern Stew, who's a Southern rock cover band. I would hope so, because if they're like doing, I don't know, a new wave, it might be kind of weird with that name, Southern Stew. So there you go. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
Thank you so much. I really, really am very grateful to be here. I am great. Having a great time with the book. Lots of great gigs coming up with Southern Stew. So yeah, things are good. Thanks.
There you go. So give us a .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
My website is Mark Medding Author, and that's MEDING author.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I do have a TikTok account. And LinkedIn, of course, and my books are sold. My book is sold on, Audible. It's in paperback, and it's also on Kindle, all on the Amazon platform. So easy to find. Pick a platform and go for it.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of this new book that you just put out.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you asking. This book came from a personal experience that I had when I was a kid. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, at a time where, you got on your bicycle in the morning and you went out and found your friends and spent all day in the woods and creating adventures and various other things and seeing what trouble you could get into and all of those wonderful things. And at the time, I grew very close with a couple of friends, and we, through an experience we had, we decided to create this pact that if any one of us would ever become either mentally or physically disabled or a burden to our family and friends, that kind of thing, that the other members of the pact would have to take that person out.
Wow.
And that's the premise of the book. That's that, right? So don't let the title scare you. I mean, it's the Jersey Death Squad, A Journey to Kill Jessie Freeman.
Yeah.
So it comes out pretty hard, but that's kind of the comedy of the book. Even though there's a pretty intense storyline, there's a ton of dark comedy. So these boys, they grew up, and it's, I don't necessarily think it's just a Jersey thing, but there's a certain way that we grew up, but breaking each other's chops, constantly, and and all that stuff. And so there's a lot of that in the book. And then so the flip side to the premise of this book is, so the pact is made when they were in their teens. So flash forward 30 years later, these boys are now men with lives and things like that. And still, the bond is very, very, very strong and very close, and the love that they have for each other is quite strong. Mm-hmm. But life has moved on. But one of the members of the group of the pact ends up kind of qualifying for the terms of the pact, right? Something happens, and the whole journey is the men find out what happened to their friend, and for whatever reasons they have to drive from New Jersey to Colorado, and that's really the journey. Is really in the car, and the experiences and the adventures and the flashbacks to the anecdotes of stories that some of the experiences they had, a little bit of trouble that they got into when they were kids. There's flashbacks of that, and it really paints the picture about what friendship and it was like back then. I think it's still like that now, but it's a little different, I think, for kids maybe. But back then, there was so much going on in your life that, we relied on each other to get through those things, and that bond was unbreakable.
There you go.
So, you're right, and that flows through the book, and the love that these boys have for each other. Still, 30 years later, you still, as you read the book, even though there's incessant chop busting, there's so much love and respect and loyalty.
Yep. It's you said in the green room, you were saying it's a mix between two different genres or two different popular shows.
Right. The one of the reviews I got, because the boys are from North Jersey, there's a lot of that North Jersey. If any of you have ever watched The Sopranos, not everybody in New Jersey talks like that, by the way, but just to let you know. But these guys, the main character that narrates the book is a Scotty Carollo, and he's a forget about it kind of guy. Hey, yo, what are you doing? Hey, what's wrong with you? That kind of thing. So it's a cross between. It's been described as a cross between The Sopranos and Stand By Me. If you remember that.
Sopranos movie. And Stand By Me. I mean, what a great mix and show that was.
Yeah.
There you go. So what else is there? You mentioned too, it's won some awards.
We're working on it. We're getting there. We're ranked on Amazon at this point at number 188, which is pretty huge considering I just launched the book back in May. Sales are going very well, and that's good. People are really drawn to it. So we're trying to break 100. We want to get in the top 100. And so right now I'm ranked at 188 and pushing hard to get the word out about the book. So doing podcasts like this, and did some radio shows and things like that just to get the word out.
There you go. It's, a lot of fun to launch into a book. So this is your first book, correct?
That is correct.
There you go. What is tell us about your journey through life. I mean, what was the map you went on? You're gone from technology now to where you're writing novels.
Right. I'm still in technology. But my overall connection to create has always been there. I've been a musician for a long time, not professionally or anything like that, but I've always played music with friends and stuff like that. It's always been a thing for many years. And I've always gotten into art, and I've created a concert series, and I used to have house concerts in my house, and I was always finding creative ways to bring people together, that kind of stuff, fellowship, whatever. And and the reason why I got to this point to write this book is probably to stop annoying my wife about it, because I just kept saying over and over again how I just thought that this was such a great story, like it could be a great movie or something like that. And I had this thing in my head for, God, it had to be 10 years, maybe longer, about this idea. And about 2 years ago, I just started putting pen to paper. And because I was drawing from a lot of personal experience, and some of the characters or blends of people in my life, developing all the characters and the plot and all that stuff wasn't that hard. It was when I really had to dive into the dialogue, that's where it got, that's where the rubber met the road, as they say. But I've always been a somewhat creative guy in my own way, and
yeah. So when did you first start writing?
2 years ago.
All right. So did you write before that? Was there any inkling that you had this talent?
No, I had a story, and that's what spawned the writing, to be quite honest with you, and not even realizing that I had an ability to do it. I just, like I said, a couple of years ago, I started putting pen to paper, and off I went. and this turned out. When you have a story that's so relatable, and it motivates you. It motivates you to really want to get the story out, and that was my main goal. Was I got completely filled up by it and excited by writing. It was daunting, but it was fun.
There you go. It's interesting. We've had so many people like yourself who've gone through life and they do one thing and then all of a sudden they just take a penchant for writing. Sometimes they were always writing from their youth, and then one day the bug hits them. Was there a proponent that? Was there anything that happened? Like a lot of people wrote over COVID. Like COVID created so many authors. It wasn't even funny. People are just like, I guess I'll write something.
My personal life was filled with lots of chaos most of my life and stress and things like that. And about 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, I decided to do something about that. And I really started to work on myself and clean house and take care of things that were in my way, that were blocking me from even being able to get to the point where I would be able to write something or even be fully present for something like this. So honestly, I mean, this journey might have started 20 years ago if I wasn't in my own way. Sometimes the biggest obstacles we have in our life are ourselves.
That is true.
I can attest to that. I think I've always been my biggest obstacle for anything that's been good in my life. And
I've always been my biggest obstacle, but it's because I ate too many tacos, clearly. I find myself on my way constantly, like literally in front of the mirror. I like that.
I feel you. Yeah.
You didn't have to agree with me, though.
No, I could only see it from the head.
That's true. I'll take that defense.
I can relate.
We've all been there. Yeah.
All been there. Yeah.
Always just need to get the hell out of our own way, including that gut. Yeah. So what's the outlook? Do you see future books? Are you working on anything new?
Dude, I have so many ideas that I'm like spewing out of my head. So I got to focus. My main focus and goal right now is to really put this book out there, because the response I've gotten has been phenomenal. People are just like, I couldn't put it down. Once I started, I was flipping the pages because I just needed to know what was going to happen. And, it's all you can really ask for when you write something like this. And that's when I wrote it. I wanted that kind of energy to come from it. So I'm just throwing all my eggs in the basket right now of getting this out there. And actually, when things kind of take off on their own and kind of start happening, I'm going to circle back. Somebody mentioned that they would love to see a sequel to this, see what happens after. And I've kicked that idea around. And then I have another idea that's completely unrelated to this book that's, kind of has a little bit of a spiritual bent to it, but an adventure.
Yeah. We have so many authors on. They create these I don't know what you call them, lines or lineages of their characters. And sometimes they have multiple lineages or multiple lines of characters and plots, and sometimes they even interweave the multiple different ones they have into where they cross over. And I'm sure there's like a term for it, but it's pretty wild. And people like that. One thing, people really get into the characters of books. I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm just giving you suggestions, but
no, I appreciate that. Yeah. No, if you like that kind of writing where there's heavy character development in this, you really learn about the characters through past experiences that they've been through and stuff like that. You really learn a lot, and it's very character driven, and the storyline, there's a lot of banter and dialogue between the characters because they're in a car driving to Colorado. There's just a lot of stuff that comes up, so you learn about them in the beginning a little bit as the characters develop, but then you really start to really get to know them and understand them as you start to read through the book. And that was the ride I wanted people to be on, is wow, and then you understand like how these 4 different people that are 4 completely different characters have kind of connected in a way that you normally wouldn't think they would, because they're all different, but yet there's a bond that's unbreakable.
Yeah.
Really cool.
How do you tell the story? Is it through each of the boys' voices and views, or is there a narrator over it all? Or
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. There is a narrator. Out of the four boys, there's one of the characters is Scotty, and Scotty ends up being the narrator of the book. And he's a real, it's Scotty Carollo, and he's got a real, New Jersey kind of way about him. He's Italian, and his dialect and his communication is what kind of brings out the dark comedy in the book.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really funny points in the book.
There you go. So it should be pretty interesting and a lot of fun. What was that Stand By Me, was it? You said it was like?
Sopranos meets Stand By Me.
Stand By Me. That was a book that a lot of kids identified with. I mean, a lot of young men, a lot of men identified with that. Because we used to do that, as being the latchkey kids back in the day. I don't know the kids nowadays would do that. They wouldn't be wandering through the woods finding bodies and
well, I don't know about you, but I spent as little time in my house as possible when I was young. I was out the door as soon as I could.
Oh. I didn't have a choice. My mom was like, "You kids get the hell out of the house and don't come back till dinner."
Yeah, so, go kick a can down the street or something.
We were latchkey kids. I don't think my parents even knew what I did for most of my childhood. How many miles I rode my bike?
No idea.
I'd ride to different counties and stuff. And like nowadays, what I did in a day would give most parents a freaking heart attack. Where'd he go?
Oh my God. Gosh. I know it would me because I know,
Yeah.
But
I'd wreck my bike all the time and come home bloody, and I'd just be like,
oh yeah. Yeah, that was the joke too. Is you didn't come home unless you were hungry or hurt.
I love it. Or unless mom started calling your middle name around dinner.
Right. Yeah.
Your middle name.
I heard somebody once on Facebook make a joke about like how parents had to be reminded that they had kids, that there was actually
the PSA. Yeah, there was. I see it every now and then. I'm like, motherfucker.
Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 o'clock.
Holy shit, I haven't seen them since 8 o'clock this morning. That's right.
Yeah, we have children? Do we have children, Margaret? Yeah, it had Andy Warhol. It had Andy Warhol, I think David Bowie. It had all these stars on it. Cyndi Lauper, I think, was on it. And I saw it a month or two ago. And it was pretty fucking wild.
What was it?
And it was the PSA of it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? And they had all these stars that were doing the PSA,
really?
And it was Andy Warhol. I believe it was Cyndi Lauper. It was Grace Jones. I think David Bowie was on it. Like all these rock stars and famous people were like, "Do you know where your kids are?"
So really had to market to the parents to really pay attention. Do you know where your kids are?
Do you know where your kids are? I mean, I would stay out as long as I could, and and even then, after dinner, I'd go out again. But we were latchkey kids. But my friends did all that stuff that you talk about in the book. So we did the Blood Brothers thing, where I think we got it from Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn or something. Was that where we got Blood Brothers? So we cut our palms. And we tied them together, so we became blood brothers. We did that whole thing with a friend of mine. I'm still friends with him to this day. I'm not sure I'd die for him, but
our pact.
I'll send a card.
Our pact with my friends was a little less sophisticated. It was more we were drinking Southern Comfort and smoking weed, but still has the same. Same impact when you're 15.
That'll do it.
There's no bloodshed, but
I remember it was weird because we became friends years later on. We found each other through Facebook, and I had forgotten about it. He reminded me. He goes, "You know we're blood brothers," and I was like, "What?" And then he reminded me, and I was like, "Yeah, we did that in the woods, huh?" Yeah, wow. And but yeah, the stuff that we used to do is crazy. So the great thing about books like this is they harken back to that era. They remind us of the innocence of childhood, or maybe we weren't so innocent at that point in childhood, or what we were gallivanting around, breaking into things. And I don't know, we were always wandering around construction sites and things. And
Chris, you just really touched on something that was another goal of this book, and you just kind of nailed it a little bit when you said, it was such like looking back on it now, it was such an innocent time. It was such a pure, it just felt pure to me. There was no distraction of social media. There was no distraction there might have been distractions in our homes and whatever. Of course, my life wasn't perfect and neither was anyone else's. But that aside, we had each other, and it didn't matter what was going on. We had each other, and that was like our salvation of dealing with anything else. We were like, as long as that innocence and that time it feels very pure to me. Mm-hmm. Even today, it was just hanging out, going into the woods, like you said. I mean, I lived in a town called Oakland, New Jersey, and where this book is actually set. I call it Oakburg in the book. But my whole backyard was nothing but woods, and we used to just get bikes and go down to the river and hang out. And it's funny too, because you mentioned the parents. There was no plan. There was just like, we're gonna go, and sometimes you end up 3 towns away somehow because of something. But yeah, I mean, couldn't be more pure and free, I felt.
Yeah. It was such a great time and so many memories, and it's really too bad kids don't have that experience, because we learned survival tools, like how to wrap a bandage around your foot if you stepped on a nail at a construction site. We drank out of hoses. We probably God knows what we ingested with all this hose drinking. And I hope the water was clean back then. I don't know. I would never trust hose water now. I know that in here where I'm visiting in Utah, they run gray water through the hoses. So
do they really?
Yeah, so they're like, hey, don't drink that stuff. They have a 2 different tier water system. They have water for your yard, and they have water for whatever else you want.
Oh,
at least I assume it's separate.
Yeah, you hope, right?
Flint, Michigan, you never know. But yeah, all that hose drinking we did, I don't know, we probably drank, 100 bugs and spiders and who knows what else. I mean, sometimes you just drink from that hose like you'd come across the desert. And yeah, it was weird. You just walk into people's homes and
walk right up to their house. I know. Like today, forget about it. You got someone.
You get shot if you did it today, like in Texas or someplace. You get shot. What are you doing? Stealing my water out of my hose. It's free.
You ever watch Sebastian Maniscalco?
No.
Yeah, the comedian.
No. I probably have seen his stuff. I'm bad with names. I'm good with faces.
Yeah, he does a whole bit about when he was growing up, and somebody came to the house. It was it was an event. It was company. People are here, right? Oh my God, get out the Sanka and the Entmans, and then he says, now today when someone rings the doorbell, it's like, everybody get down. Who's here? Did you invite anybody?
The police. They're gonna kick in the door.
Did you invite anybody? Did you invite somebody? What's going on here? Who's at our door?
Yeah.
Different time these days. Yeah, I mean, even if you got hurt, like I remember, like sometimes I'd be somewhere in a neighborhood that wasn't my own, and if I trashed my bike or got hurt or whatever, I could knock on somebody's door and ask to use their phone and call my mother. Hey, and then they would take out their own bandages and clean it up and make sure you were okay.
Yeah.
Like just such a special time, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that tone in the book.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Lots of good memories. Yeah, people were more helpful back then. I mean, you could be nowadays. You could be dying, bleeding out on someone's front porch, and they're never going to open the door. Yeah, I remember one time they in Utah they had in the small town I lived in, they would just pour oil on the roads, and then they just dump gravel down, and then just let the heat and whatever soak it into the road. And they just put the new gravel down. And I was riding my bike with a bunch of newspapers, and the newspaper bag went up into the fork somehow, and I endoed the bike.
Oh, yeah.
I was moving at top speed because this was a BMX bike that I spent a lot of money on. So I fell onto my side and was sliding through this gravel across, and I was moving so fast, and there was a lot of papers with me too. I literally slid across the whole intersection. It was a small street, but it was basically the whole end to end. And then I had to jump up. There was a car bearing down on me and throw me and my bike into a ditch. And so I get up, and I literally have gravel embedded into my elbows, my knees, and probably other parts. But basically, it was so far embedded into the flesh that you could run your hand over it and it wouldn't come out. It was like still embedded.
Like really in there. Oh my God.
And I basically just ran on all fours, knees and elbows across this thing.
Yeah.
Took half the gravel with me. And so I crawled up to the nearest house, which was these little old ladies, this retired lady and an old man. And they had their porch open. And I looked like somebody who walked in off Zombieland.
Yeah, like, no.
I had a long sleeve shirt on, thank God. I don't know what it did. But so everything is hanging off me and torn open. And I suppose if there had been more zombie movies back then, they would have been Walking Dead.
Right.
Yeah.
He's coming.
But they were really nice. They helped me out. They called my parents, and that was a fun trip to the ER room to run up my parents' bills. They hate me ever since.
Countless times, man. Countless times.
It's funny we lived through it all.
Oh my God. How many times I wiped out doing jumps. You know, remember creating those those wood jumps?
We did everything to get air. Everything was about getting more air. With our bikes.
Very well constructed.
Oh yeah. It's always like. I mean, I crashed my bike. I crashed my bike so many times. I became artistic at crashing. Like my crashes would move in slow motion. They would slowly. They wouldn't just be like boom, you crash. I'd be controlling them in the crash, but in the end, you'd wipe out. But yeah, you're always jumping off of something. You're like, how much air can we get? How high can we go?
Yeah. Yeah,
and then we had the ramps, the freestyle ramps, where you go up the one side and you take air and you come back down the other, whether you're on the bike or not.
Absolutely.
Those are great days. We should pass a law that every kid has to go through that experience. I think
they at least need to get a little road rash.
None of this helicopter parenting crap.
Ride a bike and hit a pothole and upend and, feel that experience just once or twice in their life.
Yeah. You haven't lived until you've endoed a bike.
Oh, my God.
Into your face.
I used to go down this hill in Oakland. It's called Yapo, and it's like a hill like this. And we used to I'd have one guy standing on the axle of the back wheel. and then another person on the handlebars. And the three of us would fly down this, going like you wouldn't even believe, like just insanity, man. One fraction off, and we were goners. No helmets, no pads, no nothing. Just that's the stuff that we were doing when our parents were home, not even knowing what the heck we were up to, you know.
Do we have kids? Do we have any kids? Should we? Why is this TV commercial telling us we should look for our kids? What's that about?
That's right. Yeah. You have kids when all of a sudden the ambulance is called and you have to meet them at the hospital. Oh yeah.
That's true. Oh, we have kids. The hospital called. Don't return their calls. Don't return their calls. Just let it ring through. Put on the voicemail.
Yeah, let them stay there a couple days. Okay, we'll come.
That's what I do. I just figure they'll get adopted there at the hospital if you leave them long enough. That's what happened to my kids. So it's been fun to have you on the show. Give us your final thoughts and pitch outs. Tell people where they can order the book on the interwebs, and of course .coms for you.
Absolutely, yeah. The book is definitely an adventure. It's fun. It's a quick read. You can find it on Amazon and Kindle, paperback, or on Audible, which, by the way, they just want to mention the Audible narrator. This guy, Anthony Ziello, did it, and he's just phenomenal. Brings Scotty to life like you wouldn't believe. He really got the New Jersey dialect down. My website will be up within the next day or two.
All right.
I've been working on that, but it's Mark Medding, MEDING, MARKMEDING, author.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I think you'll enjoy it. If you can relate to the stories and the growing up and the friendships and everything, then this book is for you. Absolutely.
There you go. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you having me.
There you go. Thanks, audience, for tuning in. As always, folks, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Order the book wherever fine books are sold. The Jersey Death Squad, A Journey to Kill Jessie Freeman. Out May 1st, 2024, and watch for more good stuff to come from Mark Medding. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.